What's up, guys, and welcome to Straight from the Chest podcast. My name is Justin Groth, and I'm your host on this personal development and growth podcast that I'm so excited you're taking part in today. Listen, if you're new to the show, I just want to welcome you. And if this is your 50th or 250th time tuning back in, thank you for your continued listenership, support of the channel. It means a lot to me. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, anywhere that there's podcasts, we're likely there. Please do so. I'd appreciate the support. And also the YouTube, we're trying to grow that channel just as much. We're a little bit late to the game, but better late than never. So please subscribe there if you haven't yet as well. And share to your Instagram stories. I'll be sure to re-mention you if you do. Link the podcast, share with others. That's all I ask. Just help to generate more awareness of the podcast, the guests we have on, their stories, and all that good stuff. So thank you for your continued support. Again, without further ado, Max, welcome to the show, brother.
Happy to be here, Justin.
It's good to have you, man.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to reach out for quite some time because, you're a local at our gym, Fitness 19 in Rio Grande. For people that don't know, Rio Grande is a little podunk town in California. No, it's not. It's really nice. It's not nice, but it's nice enough, man, right? I mean, it's not like a San Diego or an LA or anything like that, but it's cool, man. I love the communal aspect of Rio Grande, 5 cities. I'm sure you do too, man.
Absolutely.
You're kind of like that guy as well. So, but one thing, man, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is because, and I think I've told you this prior, I've always admired you for moving in the way that you did. I don't want to go into too much detail because I want you to tell listeners your backstory, etc. But I really admire the fact that you took on that scary idea of moving to an entire different state, man. And you did it in your 20s, and so, but I just kind of gave a brief synopsis of that, but I want you to kind of go into more detail about that, man.
Yeah. So, like you said, this town of Rio Grande is like one of those small town vibes, very chill, relaxed. Where I'm from Dallas, Texas. So, city, lived there for 26 years. And I think during the pandemic, like most of us, we were just kind of realizing what is important in life. And I mean, it's every day. It's still, I feel surreal being here. Like I thank God every day that He allows me to be walking where I am now, and meeting people like you, meeting people in the gym. That's one of the things I've always admired about the gym is people were always there to get better. And one of the biggest reasons why I'm out here was to do just that, man. It was just to become the best version of myself. I'm sure you can relate in many ways, right? This podcast, for example, it's a great thing that you're doing, man. So
you gave us the Cliff's Notes, and I appreciate that. And maybe because you're maybe a tad bit apprehensive because you don't know who's listening. It's the first time on a podcast, I'm assuming, right?
Something like that,
But let's get into the weeds, man.
Yeah.
Because it's the Cliff's Notes versions are fine, but people can't relate to Cliff's Notes.
Yeah, certainly.
They relate to the dirt, right?
Yeah. So I was working full time as a personal trainer back in Dallas. I've always wanted to become a trainer. I think like most of us were gym rats, and it just became one of those things where I guess we'll backtrack 8 years ago, right? I was a teenage father in high school, so I had my son at the age of 17, and I was with his mom at the moment, and through all things, it didn't work out. And I think whenever you have such a loss like that, right, whether it be a relationship, not being able to see your daughter, your son as much as you'd like to, you start to sort of find things in life to fill that void. And for me, what I found was at that moment, at the age of 18, 20, was working out and building myself up in that way. And through that, I found a really good community. And during that time, and I'm going to fast forward again, during the pandemic, right? Working as a full-time trainer, I was training people out of my car ultimately. I was going, because all the gyms are shut down, as you know, most with the pandemic, a lot of the facilities shut down. So I was just going home to home training, clients that still wanted to work out because it was an important part of their life. And I felt like I had a lot of control at that time and said, if I can do this here, I can do this anywhere. But at the same time, during the pandemic, I started to realize what was important in life. And I realized that a lot of the things that were holding me back were things that I was just really holding on to. And the biggest thing that I had to learn was forgiveness, forgiving and forgetting my past. And it was through the grace of God that allowed me to do that. I think I was at my lowest moment one day working out in my home gym. And I just remember beating myself up so bad that I was just on my knees. And it was really one of those moments where I was unforgiving to myself. I couldn't move on from all of the past. And at that moment, God reached out to me and said, "You are loved." And from then on, I was just a spiral of making amends with, past relationships, but more importantly, my mom, my dad, right? Because they played a huge impact in my life. And from then I just had this calling to go to California. And it's crazy because the guy that I was working with, we had a meal prep company. It was Muscle Junkies meal prep company for those in Dallas. They have a really good quality food, and they do delivery services. So I was doing that with my clients. The only way, this, right? The only way to really achieve a great physique is not only through working out, but also through diet and nutrition. So it worked out well. And I told him, "Hey man, I just have this calling that God is telling me to go to California. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know where I'm going to go. I had an idea, right? All I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a plane ticket, pack my bags, and just go."
That's the thing that I admire the most about you, man.
And he was like, whoa. Like, I love where you're going with this. I love your energy about it, but let me help you out. And that was, one of the greatest things that I've ever done in that. I managed to reach out to an old friend, Dustin, who you've had on the podcast before. We used to work at this restaurant together, and he's had a pretty crazy story. If you look back at your podcast, you'll find and you'll listen to his story. But I reached out to him and I told him what I was going through, all these amends and how God has been working in my life. And granted, I hadn't talked to him in 4 or 5 years. So I was like completely reaching back out to him for the first time. But we had both been in the same community, fitness community. He was a bodybuilder with his buddy Brandon, who was a part of Muscle Junkies, meal prep. And I just told him, and through his loving heart and through his now wife's loving heart, they said, "Come here, we'll help you get on your feet." And that's sort of how I'm here, right? But it was through sort of finding a passion and knowing that that's where I wanted to go, and that's what I enjoyed doing, because I ultimately my background is in sales, right? Communication, customer service, and that's where I find a lot of call it fulfillment or purpose, but I get a lot of excitement from that. I like being around people. I enjoy talking to people and listening to their stories, which is one reason why I've loved your podcast.
Cool, man. I mean, I appreciate that you listen. And the thing that I want to go back on is when you were in your garage, or you were training, and you said you were beating yourself up. What does that mean? You were beating yourself up with weights or mentally, or
both? I was actually mentally, physically, and I was you can call it an addiction, right? I was marijuana is not addictive, but I was very under the influence of that, and it was more of a sedation, right? It was a way to disconnect from what was really going on in that moment. And it was just a combination of all those three. And bodybuilding, when I see someone with a great physique, I not only see their hard work, but I also see a lot of struggle, right? Because I personally think that most people who have such a good physique, that's a lot of energy channeled into that, right? Whether it be positive or negative energy. And when I see someone with a great physique, I say to myself, I respect that person in the sense that they were able to channel their energy into a positive way, right? Through bodybuilding. And, a lot of us, it's what it's all about. It's breaking down the muscle and then building back up stronger. And through that, you look good.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, sometimes the pursuit of building a body is nothing more than addiction in a different path. It could have ended up with the bottle, or it could have ended up with pills, or could have ended up with cocaine or any substance. But it ended up you abusing the weights instead of those substances. And I hear what you're saying. I definitely, that's a whole different perspective I've never saw, because you're right. And it's predicated really on how people move into the space of weight training. So if they move into it because they feel less than, they don't feel adequate, or they were, abused physically, mentally as a kid, or verbally rather, I should say, as a kid, then yeah, some of those things are going to cause them to want to circumvent their situation. And as a byproduct, they turn to weights instead of drugs. And that's good, right?
Absolutely.
There's also the other end of this perspective, which is ego. That a lot of people build bodies because they're too egotistical to not build bodies. And that's where I fit in the realm. Because I never was verbally or physically abused as a kid.
Right.
My ego is fucking large. And I don't mean ego in the sense of like I have to be the best at everything. I want to show myself that I'm better than I think I am. And so it's when I train, it's a fucking war on myself. And I don't mean to say that to get a pat on my back or to get respect or anything. No, it's a silent war that no one understands is going on. But it's up to me to win the battle every time. And that sounds really bold and like sort of audacic to say. And I don't mean to say it like that. I don't know how else to put it. But that's all stems from my want and desire to be better. And I don't know, a lot of people will say that, okay, well then that's the reason why you want to be better, because you want to see your best version, I guess.
Yeah.
Or I'm too egotistical to see what the alternative is. The alternative is me being less than. And that to me is not a good option. Right. So I, as a result, go the other way. But then because I have an addictive personality, it spirals into excess, right? But so anyways, that's been my experience with training. But you lend a good hand in that in terms of the perspective, because that is something I've never thought of, but it's true, man.
Yeah, no, I think that you hit it right on the head. I think the addictive personality, and I can find myself in that realm as well. Like I was talking to you about, I just recently picked up surfing, which for me, I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't like doing a new thing because I hate not being good at it, and therefore I don't want to partake on it. I'm like that, but I'm more so like, well, I'm just going to do as much as I can and get as good as possible, so that way I don't stink at it, right? And that comes from my addictive personality, I think. And it just really depends on how you channel it, right? You can either channel it to benefit you, whether it's surfing, weight training, building a business, or whatever it may be, or you can channel it with substances, drugs, addiction of pornography, marijuana, cocaine, whatever it may be that's detrimental to your psyche and your physical health. So I think innately we do have this wanting to be better, right? You call it the ego, and that's it's in that sense, yeah.
Well, the only reason why I would say ego is because it's not a wholesome pursuit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess it is when it's all laid out on paper, but it's the thing that drives me is that I don't want to be worse than I was yesterday. And so I don't know what else to levy that on. That's why I say ego, because I don't know where else that's coming from. You know, I don't have people. I don't look at Instagram and think, oh man, I got to be better than him. I don't have anybody around me that I think, man, I want to be better than you. And I don't mean to say that to be this anomaly or this like, I'm just being authentic. I don't have competition in that regard. There may be there's lots of people that are doing way better than me, but I don't even compete against them because my own person, the person that lives inside of me is far worse of a competition than any specimen you could put in front of me. That's where the war starts. The war is going on before I even go to the fucking gym and I start lifting weights. But then when I start lifting weights, I immerse myself in the first rep, 2, 3, 4, and I want to play it cool that day. I don't even want a progressive overload. I don't want to do nothing, man. I just want to go through the reps and get my work done. And that doesn't happen. Every time it doesn't happen. Yeah. It's always the opposite. It's always, nope, I'm already this deep in it. Well, I'm going to go deeper.
Yeah.
And then that just becomes a behavior. It becomes a part of me. But that's what I talk about with regards to war. That to me is war. Because what am I training for? You know, when you say training, it means you got something in the forefront that you're doing it for. I'm not doing it for anything. I'm not bodybuilding anymore. I'm not competing anymore. I'm not doing any of that, but I still have the same behavior.
Right.
I still have the same behaviors. The mindset is the same. I do everything the same now as I was 10 years ago when I was competing. And I call it training. I don't call it exercise.
Absolutely.
Because it really is training at this point, but I'm not training for anything. Would you call it training for life?
No. I think so. I mean, I think there's a part of it where like you built that discipline, right? You built that routine. That's a part of who you are. And you immerse yourself in it. That's one of the things I've admired about you. You know, you can just see at the gym, you know, it's a good social place, but you can see who's in there putting in work. You can see who is really training and pushing themselves to the next level. So that's one of the things I've always admired about you is you've got that laser focus. And when you're in the gym, you're just training and you just sort of get lost in that process, right? You get immersed in it. And we were just talking about focus earlier. That's what it's all about, right? You've got that focus. And that, to me, I think translates to other areas of your life, right? Before I started working out, I was really all over the place, man. I was probably 100 pounds wet out of high school, and I had no direction really in life. But it wasn't until I picked up the barbell, that sort of gave me that confidence that, hey, if I can put my mind to changing my body, what else can I do, right? Whether it be through business and sales, which is one of the areas that I enjoyed as well, or family and relationships, right? I think it definitely transfers over to other parts of life, not just the gym. That's one of the things I've always admired about the gym community is that we're all, like I said, we're all there to get better. And those areas and that discipline, that work ethic transfers over to other parts of your life. Sort of like,
yeah, you nailed it, man. I don't think that enough people realize that.
Yeah.
Like if they just do something hard, like lifting weights, even though you and I don't see lifting weights as hard because it's something we love to do. And we would do it. We're going to likely do it to the day we can't do it anymore. You know, I don't want to say die because there's going to be a time where before we die, we can't lift weights either. But when you're training, we have fun doing, even though it is this all out effort. And for my circumstance, it's war on myself. And I mean war like OCD war. Like I gotta feel a certain way at the end of the set as I did the beginning of the set, whether that means rest pause, drop set, whatever. Like I gotta feel like that last set of the last set of the exercise is like the fucking is I can end it there and feel good as if I'm gonna die that day.
Right. And
that's not a common thought to have. I have to have that thought every single time at the end of the exercise, and even in the interim through the subsequent sets prior, I'm still that way because that's an OCD compulsion thing with me. And that just materialized over the years.
Yeah.
But it is the way it is now. And I've kind of learned to deal with it and just live with it. And I think in part, that's what makes me anything. If you're going to look at somebody, look at them for their work ethic. Don't look at them for their body or what they've accrued. Because yeah, that matters. But there are thousands, millions of good bodies in the world. They don't all have good work ethic.
Yeah, a lot of it's genetics too, right?
Sure.
It's gifted genetics, but you're right. Work ethic is important. I think that's sort of like how you became a business owner, right? You're successful in that area. You're successful in building a studio and hiring clients, right? And now with your podcast, right? So,
well, and I guess the one thing it's taught me is discipline to stay in the game, dude. And even when things aren't working in your favor, to stay in the game. It's like you're going to end up bleeding for something in life, dude. You might as well bleed for something that you like to do. And even if you don't love to do it, fine. You're not going to love to do everything, but at least you can if you like to do it, you've already kind of surpassed many people in life.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people in life don't do things that they do things that they hate, that they don't like, that they either don't like or hate. And hate's a strong word to use, but that's pretty descriptive of some people in the world. Like they literally hate going to their job every day. Now, if you like to do something, you've kind of struck sort of the lottery to some degree. Maybe it's only like a $2 million lottery jackpot, but at least you struck some coin, right? Whereas if you love to do something, well, that's like a $250 million jackpot.
Yeah. You've
struck. But the point is, it's still good. And maybe you can learn to love that thing that you like. Maybe it can circumvent it. Maybe it can, I would say, materialize into something that you never even thought existed. Maybe it can lead you down a different path that you didn't otherwise think was there. All these things make you better in the process. So if you don't stick it out with this, well, then what are you going to stick it out with?
Absolutely. I agree with that. Actually, I was in a position, and I've talked to you about this, right? I was... like I said, my background's in sales. I never really had to do a lot of manual work. Growing up in a city, there's not much, that's why one thing I appreciate about this town is it's built off of agriculture. It's built off of blue collar workers. So when I first moved here, I was like, okay, who's really got it? Who's really kind of living the life that I want to live? And I noticed that a lot of the people here are business owners in the sense of they're contractors, they're plumbers, or electricians. And for me, that's one area that I've always wanted to move into, which was real estate, buying homes, fixing them up, selling them, repeating the process, right? So I jumped on board with a friend of mine who owns his own company. He's a Paul Davis general contractor. And at first, man, I should have quit the first week. I had a 70-pound jackhammer fall on my foot. And the thing was swollen. Luckily, it wasn't broken. But if anything, that was my third day on the job. I probably should have said, this is it. I'm done. I'm quitting. Right. But a part of me, my ego was like, well, I can't just quit now. I committed to Paul and I wanted to make sure that, I don't strike myself as someone who quits early on. So, next week my foot was still damaged, whatnot, but I was like, doctor said I'm good. Let's go back to work. And a few months later, I'm just like, man, this is grunt work, man. I can't do this. Like, it's just not, I'm not used to working this type of job for this type of pay. I'm used to going, selling, making commission, and sort of like, not call it the easy money, but, just the labor was different. And I said to myself, and I talked to you about this, I was like, man, I don't think this is for me. I want to go back into training. And I had to really dig deep and be very honest with myself and say, do you want to build a reputation of being the person who quits when things get hard, right? What good comes from just quitting when things aren't good, right? Anything worth having takes time, it takes effort, and it takes discipline. And I had to talk to a few people to get it inside my head. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to commit to this, even though it's hard on my body, right? Working 40 hours a week doing manual labor is tough, but I know that this is a season of my life that is going to lead me to where I really want to go, which is, the ownership of homes, being able to repair them and sell them eventually. So it's just, and I don't think I would have been able to do that had it not been for the discipline in the gym, right? When I got injured, I was I was in the gym 3 days later, right? I could barely put any pressure on my foot, but I said, all right, can I do a pistol, or can I do a reverse lunge? I was like, all right, I can do a reverse lunge. All right, I'm going to the gym, right? Same thing when I was deadlifting and I injured my back. I was in the hospital that same night. A buddy of mine and my girlfriend at the time picked me up. They did x-rays and whatnot, and they said nothing's broken, but we think you tweaked the muscle in the back. And I really couldn't walk. Like, the nurse was saying, the only way you're going to leave this hospital bed is if you walk. And I was in there for almost 4 hours, and I was just like, I can't, I hate feeling helpless. I'm going to just force myself to walk. So I got on that little walker, started walking slowly. She's like, all right. She takes the walker away, and I'm like, oh, darn it. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, my ego, right? I guess that's what it is. My ego is just like, you got to do it. You got to do it. So slowly, and she looked at me and she said, oh, okay, you're good to go. 4 days after that, I was at home. I got into a squat position. I was like, all right, I can get into a squat. I'm going to the gym. So it's just like, when life brings you down, there's going to be things that kind of like obstacles, right? And it's just how you respond to them, right? Being in a responsive mode instead of in a reaction mode is very powerful. You give the power to yourself and not to your situation. And going back to weightlifting, that's sort of what it just taught me in the sense of my job now, right? Working general contracting, which I've learned a lot of skills with it, right? Learn how to just do electrical work, learn how to change faucets, learn how to put fascia, plywood, drywall, all these things that we just take for granted, right? Because we live in such a 21st century, right?
We live in the end product.
We live in the end product.
And
so it's like,
you're the one making the product.
Exactly. And that's, I'm not a doomsday or anything, but at the end of the day, it's like, what did the pandemic teach us, right? About essential jobs, right? When things go wrong, let's say that technology is tomorrow, all the electricity in the world gets shut down. Would you be able to survive? Or, you got to look at it like that in a way. I'm not saying that the end is near or anything like that, but you have to be a utility in that sense, right? And that's one of the things that I just wanted to know. And that's when, I've just admired of people. And just, like I said, I always look up to people who are doing it better. And I just say, okay, if they can do it, why can't I do it? So,
well, and one thing that people are missing too, that you're kind of illustrating without directly saying, is that it's building character. Like all this work that you're doing, this laborious work, even though it's not stuff that you want to be doing per se, it's building a lot of character, man. And that's something that you cannot read, you cannot buy. You have to directly experience the causal things that accrue character.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It's adversity, man. How do you respond to things when they get hard, right? Do you lay on your back, cry, hide in your room, seclude yourself, or do you just go out there and try to make it work, right? And one of the things I've had to learn too is you can't do this on your own. And that was one of the challenges that I faced a lot, right? Community is so important, right? Fellowship is so important. Learning to ask for help is so important. One of the things that God's revealed to me while I was surfing was how to ask for help. And I have this ego where I'm like, no, I can do it on my own. I'll figure it out. I don't need your help. Even though I might need it, I'm like, I can do it. But one day I was out there, learning the whole thing. I was part of a school, and we go back in. First session's over, 2-hour session's over. When we go back out, and the guy's like, "Hey, we'll see you out there. We'll be there in just a minute." So I'm out there surfing by myself, and I bail out on the wave, and I lose my strap. So the thing that goes on your leg. So my board's floating away. I'm like, okay, no biggie, right? I'll just swim back out there. I didn't know I was in a riptide.
Oh no!
I didn't know I was in a riptide, man. But I felt it dragging me in, and I didn't know what to do in a riptide. I'm from Texas. There's no water out there, So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just power through it. And this is already after being out there for 2 hours. So I'm just swimming. I'm like, I put my head down in the water, and I'm just paddling. I get out of the water, and I look, and I'm like, I didn't move much at all. But I'm like, all right, I can still do this, right? And granted, I can't touch the ground with my feet yet. So I'm out there swimming, and I can't do it. I swear, I was out there paddling for a good minute or two, and I'm at this point, I'm exhausted. And I see the people out there, they're doing their little lesson. The instructor's backs towards me, teaching the students how to do the exercise, the pop-ups and all. And I'm out there, I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, if I ask for help right now, I'm gonna look like a complete idiot, right? And it was just that moment where all my energy was exhausted, right? Kind of how you feel with that last set of an exercise. I'm exhausted. And I just remember raising my hand and yelling, help, help. And then on the third time, my feet touched the ground. Oh. And I'm like, thank God. So, God has this funny way of revealing to us things that we kind of know we should be doing, but he puts you in this situation where you're forced to do it. At least that's how I saw it at that moment, and it wasn't until I touched the ground that I was like, all right, he was looking out for me. And I go back to the beach, and the instructor was like, hey, were you okay out there? And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm totally fine. So that was a trickling of effects where I was going through some things a couple months ago, and I was just trying to do it all on my own. And I reached out to my dad first and foremost, reached out to my mom, my brother, who I haven't talked in a while. And it was very liberating, having that experience and knowing that, hey, you can ask for help and not feel weak, right? And that's why I think it's so important to have a community of people who are there to support you and fellowship with you and just know what you're going through so they know how to help you. And that's what we're all about. It's all about helping and growing each other. Iron sharpens iron, right? So another man doesn't another, right?
Were you always religious? You always had a religious background?
I wouldn't call it religious. And I get asked that. I think for me, I was raised Catholic. Did the whole baptism, did the communion, did the confirmation, but I didn't know God. One of the reasons why I came out to the coast was to pursue God. And that's why I think Dustin and I were connected at that moment, because he had just gotten through his accident and he had sort of that awakening as well. Like, oh man, I'm not here just to live everyday drinking, everyday partying, right? There's a greater purpose to that. And for me, that happened while I was in my garage too. And I tried doing things my way for so long, right? I was big into drinking, big into partying, chasing girls. And I thought that's what life was about, right? I thought that's what being a man was about. I thought being a man was, if you acquire money, wealth, and power, you're the man, right? You've got it made. And just getting a little taste of that, there was no fulfillment in it. And I think God uses broken people to help shine light on others, right? Who are also chasing that and realizing that there's no fulfillment in this, right? I find more fulfillment, I find more purpose, and I find more power. I find more of my identity in Christ, in knowing who I am through him, because that is one thing that never changes, right? My body, right? I can get injured and I can lose all my ability to walk and lift weights. And now who am I, right? I can lose my job as a general contractor and I find my purpose in my identity in that, but I lose my job there. Then who am I? But one thing that stays constant for me is God, is Christ. He never changes. He's the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow, right?
So can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
His promises that he's made to us are true, right?
Well, you're asking me. You're putting a question mark at the end of that.
I'm asking you, right? Because I know that's true, right? What is truth? And especially in this culture that we live in, right? People are searching for truth. People are looking for what God, or people are just looking for what is true. And we don't know that anymore, I think, as a culture with, social media kind of personifies that or exemplifies that. But I just think that there's so many people or things that we sort of chase that we think are going to bring us happiness or fulfillment, and they just don't, because they're transient, right? It's good for the moment, and then tomorrow it's gone, right? Whether that be a relationship, your job, a hobby, or whatever it may be. And one thing that I found is that Christ, God, is a solid foundation. It's not going anywhere. He's been here with us since before you were born, right? So for me, I find a lot of my ability to do things like work a job that I find very challenging, right? I always pray for strength every morning because I can't do it by myself, right? Putting all that weight on yourself is too much to handle. We have to put it onto him in order for us to achieve anything great.
Okay, but what does that mean though? When you say, because I often wonder the same thing, how do I give it to God? When people say just give it to God, what does that mean?
That means whatever you're trying to control, whatever you're trying to, I would say even manipulate, right? Whatever thing in your life that you don't think God will make better, or will just give it to God, for me means that put all your trust and faith into him. And this is one of my favorite verses, is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not onto your own understanding, and all things acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Right? And I truly hold that in my heart because, like I said, in the past, I tried doing things my way. I try saying, okay, if I do this, X, Y, and Z, I will get 1, 2, and 3. I just wanted to know.
Right.
But it doesn't work that way, right? So giving it to God is putting all your faith into him and knowing that he has, whether it's what you wanted, God's purpose is always better and it's always greater. So no matter for me, if it's not what I wanted, it's what he wants, and I'm 100% happy with that.
Well, what do you know what he wants and what he doesn't want?
Just put your faith in him. That's
the thing about, and by the way, I'm on your side. I don't want you to get it misinterpreted. But I like most people question more now than I ever did. When I was younger, I didn't. And now, and I'm not saying my questions are valid because I'm a dumbass and I don't know anything. But I am questioning because what I used to sweep under the rug doesn't really make sense as to why I did it. Meaning,
what do you mean by that? Like sweep
so
under
a
the
lot
rug?
of the terminology that we use as Christians is sort of nebulous. What I mean by nebulous means hazy.
Hazy.
There's not really an end result or an end definition of what it means to have faith, what it means to give it to God. We don't really know what that means. We kind of say those things as a means of solution. And when we're in the brotherhood or the Christian faith, we as Christians receive that from other Christians because it's the terminology.
Right. I would say to you, have you asked God? Have you asked him?
Okay, so when I ask God, again, that's another nebulous thing because he's not talking to me directly. Like I've been a Christian since I was 16 and I've never heard him talk to me directly where I can distinguish that's God. That's not just some fucking random voice in my head.
Right.
I don't know the difference. Maybe because I'm too stupid, I can't distinguish the two.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to note that I am stupid in this regard.
I don't think you're stupid.
Well, that I don't know how to distinguish.
I think that's a very valid point to make because I've heard a lot of people say the same or something similar to that. I don't hear his voice, but I truly believe that if we have it in our hearts, right, and it starts there, right? It starts in your heart, your mind, your body, and your soul. That you seek after him, he's always there.
Okay, what does that mean? So
seek after him.
Let's get into the weeds of this because when you even say that, I can't distinguish what it means from the heart to the soul.
Right. So let's look at the Bible, right? So that is God's word, right? And if we look at whether it's the Old Testament, the New Testament, if we read more about who God is and who we are through him, because we're just a reflection of him, right? We're a direct reflection of his image. So if we know who he is, then we know who we are. And that's what I mean by seeking him in that regard.
But again, how do you feel in the heart and the soul? Because I would argue that the only thing we can feel is viscerally in our gut and in our brains.
Well, I think there's, you've got you said viscerally being your body.
No, gut.
Your gut,
like
right?
Intuition. And then mentally, neurologically in the brain.
Yeah. I think that those two parts are connected. And I think that
they definitely are.
And yeah, they are. Absolutely. And I think that your heart is also connected to that. And I think that as men, I know I'm guilty of it as well. Like I'm very logical. I'm like, all right. Like when I talk to somebody, my goal is, all right, how can I get this person to do X, Y, and Z? How can I get them to do this thing? But there's more to it, more of a relational component to it. And I think that's where being compassionate, loving, right? That's one of the biggest things that God teaches us, how to love people, more so how to love yourself. And by doing that, by practicing that, I think you're able to be more connected to your heart, not just your gut, your intuition, or your mind. I don't know, Justin.
So can the heart feel though? Because the heart's an organ, right?
Yeah.
So the kidneys are organs too.
Yeah.
Can the kidneys feel?
Well, I mean,
I'm putting disparaging terminology on this because I also am trying to navigate. Mm-hmm. So this is not directed towards you. This is directed to all of humankind if they can answer this for me and give me logical data that supports what I'm arguing about.
And I think that's where you're coming from. You're coming from it from a logical perspective.
Right, because I'm thinking.
Yeah, and that's what we're made to.
So sometimes we just shouldn't think.
It's not that we shouldn't think. I think. I think that there is more to life than just being logical, and it's a balance, right? That word is kind of being thrown around now, balance. It's all a balance, right? Choosing to do things from your heart, your passion, choosing to do things from your brain, your logical sense, are two different things. And I think that the more you're connected to those, I personally think the more fulfilling life you get. sometimes you just have to, I'm going to go back to it, just give it to God. Have faith. Having faith is hard because we're leaving it to something that we can't see. And that's as a logical human being, because I know I'm there most of the time. That messes with me. Like, it really does. But I just have to be able to say, have faith in God and just say that he will take care of it. Like I said, whatever the outcome is, and I think that's another part of it too, is whatever the outcome is, I'm okay with, right? Because if we try to asphyxiate on what the outcome is, we're just always going to be in this place of dissatisfaction or disparity, or I don't know. It's just the simpler the better.
Keep going. I'm listening.
I'm not. That's all I got to say about that. I know you're grilling me, and I'm like, oh man.
No, I'm not, and I don't want it to come off like that, man. Because
it's good. I appreciate it.
I'm just talking out loud.
For sure.
That's really all I'm doing, and I'm just. These are questions that I've always had, and I sort of suppress because I am a believer and I am a Christian, but. Well, there's no but to that. It is what it is. However, I can't help but I have these questions. So, and even if I don't verbalize them, well, God is all knowing. He already knows I have these questions. If I don't say what I think about that person over there, doesn't matter because he knows everything.
It's in your heart.
And he already knows.
Yeah.
So well, then why don't I verbalize it? Because God already knows. He's the only person I'm trying to save this from, because I could say it and I could be done with it and it not mean anything to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but the thing is that the biggest problem I have is that and I'm with you, dude. I don't like to think logical all the time. I like to be in dreamland like a lot of people do. And I like to think about the visions I have, and I want to materialize those. And everybody has visions, bro. It doesn't matter now to what level those visions are at. That's all independent.
Absolutely.
But I still have these visions that I think of, and I don't want to always live in logical territory when it comes to that. So I do dream weave a little bit. So, and also on top of that, I don't like to look. The reason why I got started with training wasn't because I want to make a lot of money. It was because I found I had a knack at involving fitness with people and building relationships with people through fitness. That's why I really started training. And it was that on top of tutorial, like giving tutelage to people. Like, I liked that aspect too. I found that I liked that. I only found that I liked that when people asked me in the gym, how do I do this movement? Can you watch me do this movement? See if I'm doing it right. And that only came because I started to compete. I started to build a body, and people thought I knew what the fuck I was doing. So they asked me, they felt confident in asking me, or secure rather, in asking me how to do XYZ movement. And I showed them, or I would talk to them about nutrition, etc. And that gave me sort of the buildup of competency that led into the confidence to start personal training.
Yeah.
It wasn't because I thought I was going to train all my bros and we were going to do bodybuilding. I was going to get paid lots of money to train my bros, because that, as a trainer, that's not what happens.
Right.
So I went into that with a heartfelt nature. Mm-hmm. It wasn't predicated on money, but what happens in the real world is that you can't live off of just your passion. You have to find something that you're passionate about, secure value in that passion, and uphold that value through means of financial compensation.
Right.
Because that's how you scale and that's how you provide. And as males, what are the burdens on us as males? Two things mainly: to provide and protect. You can label that under security as well, but that's the main thing that we're geared towards producing when it comes to finding a mate, building a family.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think it's a lot of that is sort of, I see it in my peers. I see it in just, you'll see someone new at the gym who's probably never been, just probably teenage boy. You can tell they've never worked out a day in their life, and you can just see the lack of confidence. And I think a lot of, I don't know, a lot of young men, I think like we said, we're in the end product, right? So there's no need to go out there and hunt and gather and build anything. It's given to you now. And I think, that saying is like, you've heard this, like hard times create strong men create good times create weak men,
soft men.
And the cycle continues. And I think we're in that generation where, we've got it so good. And, we're in that, like you said, we are supposed to be providers and protectors. And I think a lot of the younger generation, or the generation of men that we're going through now, probably aren't there, right? I know I wasn't there, right? I had to build up to something that I can say, like you said, you've had people come up to you and ask you, and you showed them how to do it, and that gave you confidence, right? And therefore you went out and did something with it, right? A lot of these guys don't have that confidence. A lot of these guys don't have a skill. A lot of these guys don't have a passion, or whatever it may be. Competency gets compensated, right? A lot of those don't have that competency.
Yeah, but all these guys speaking of, they're young as fuck.
Yeah.
They're like 20. Like, you should be still a dumbass at 20. Like I was riding my skateboard at 21 because at 19 to like 20, because I had lost my license for a year and a half because I had so many fucking tickets. I had lost it for that long. I was riding my skateboard around town eating sandwiches for food because I love sandwiches. I wasn't lifting prior to this. My point is, I didn't have any pursuit I was following, didn't care, just doing me, being selfish, looking at girls. That's all my mind was on, girls and going to The Graduate. And that was it, man. People around here used to, know The Grad. That was the shit back then. Wednesday nights, college hump night. And then like Sundays too, and they had like a little teeny bopper night. I did that shit for a time. I did that too when I was of age. But that's all I live for. Like these kids that we see I know what kids you're talking about. I see these same guys.
Hey, I just really a general guy. There's no one in specific I'm talking about.
No, absolutely not. But I know the general age bracket you're leaning towards, and the guys that are all wearing the Gymshark and raw, gear, shirts and hoodies and sweats and I see these guys. They're so young that they shouldn't know what to do yet. They should be fucking mindless in the regard of, where do I go next? What should I do? Like they're only I guess the only things that they look at in life are girls, working out, their job that they go to for, maybe they bust tables or they wait tables or something. And then that's it, man.
Yeah.
And that's going to be their life for a good chunk of years. Hopefully though, they don't stay there.
Right. And
they evolve out of it. But at a point in life, I think for me, it was around 27, 28, I realized I can't do girls the way I've been doing them. Like wrong, like cheating on girlfriends and things of that nature. I have to look towards doing something that I find meaning and value in. And I just got to better myself. I have to better myself. And I didn't know what that looked like, but I followed what I was good at least at the time, what drew my attention and what kind of excited me. Because it doesn't wholeheartedly excite me to get out of bed and go train folks. What excites me is the building of the relationships that I have with them and the communication that I continuously build on every single time I see them. That's what helps to get me out of bed, knowing that that's going to be new every single day.
Yeah.
So that's the medium that I choose to navigate on, is through fitness, but it's mainly to get to people fitness is just a medium that I use. And I figured that out only like maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm 37. I don't know what I was doing in my mid-20s, man. I just, and I don't think any man typically does unless they're in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And they're brought into that entertainment industry from a young age. You know, I mean, there's only so many Justin Biebers of the world. So many Justin Timberlakes of the world, people that get brought into this industry at such a young age, so many Britney Spears, that they just are money makers. They're just money makers from a young age. And they don't know their course because all they're doing is being told what to do. And they just go to this shoot, to this commercial, to this, you know, such and such, whatever. And they get paid as a result. And they're making so much money that they don't have to navigate. They don't have to try to reinvent themselves. They don't have to figure out what to do because there's no stressful state imposed on them because they're already making it.
You're right.
But those are very, very rare cases. The majority of us have to figure things out for what it's going to serve us eventually in the future and going to provide a household and going to bring a legacy to our name. That's important for males in general.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest component of it too. It's like we sort of strung away from that part, the legacy, right? The legacy. That's sort of what your dad did, my dad did, your grandpa did, my grandpa did, right? Is that you harped on two things: is legacy and connection, right? Connection with people. One of the best things that ever happened to me at a young age was having my son, right? That changed me completely, right? My mindset had to just change into from being a like 19-year-old, what did you call it, tippy or ticky, going to the hanging out most of the time, which I still did a lot, but it was in I think it would have been worse had I not had my son, but it forced me to grow in that sense, right? And that changed my heart. It really did. Having a family puts a lot of the it puts more responsibility on you in a good way, because now you're not having to think about yourself, you're having to think about others. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of us kind of do, is we think about ourselves so much that we forget about the people around us. And I think that's what a lot of people are just looking for, is that connection, right? And a lot of guys don't feel adequate enough to have a family because, I don't know, maybe standards have been raised, or more so social media, right? The personification of a lifestyle, right? You see these 20-year-old guys and girls who are crushing it, making money. Your everyday, your celebrity, your Justin Bieber has now, is now your next door neighbor, right? So people feel inadequate, or people feel like they're not doing enough, right? And that becomes a cyclical pattern, and it just causes a lot of issues in that sense. But I think that's really what we're kind of called to do is, build a legacy, have connections with people. And what best way to do that than to have a family? But you can't do that unless you've built something for yourself, right? We're created to build and work, protect as men, right? Women have their own struggles, but as men, we have to, right? One of the things that Rollo Tomassi says, and you're big on him as well, is we have to create our value, right? What does that mean? It means we have to wake up every freaking day, whether we feel like it or not, and we have to go out there and we have to go get it. No matter how we feel, we have to go get it.
Yeah, that's called discipline, though. You know what I mean? Like, and that the byproduct of what happens when you do that is you do create something, because you're not mindlessly working in a vacuum for nothing.
Right.
You're going out, you're entering the world every day. And if you do that repeatedly, something's bound to happen. Something's bound to materialize in your favor, predicated on you doing something that you find meaning in, and that courses through your veins. But if you don't, and you just do something that is, paying bills, and I get paying bills, and you may have to do something to pay bills on top of something else that courses through your veins, but don't lose the thing that courses through your veins. Do that too, even if it's just on an abbreviated level, still do it. So the discipline is something that inherently comes, the value is something that comes inherently by you displaying discipline.
Absolutely.
And doing things you don't really want to do, but you have to do them. I think that's the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest things about being an evolving human being is laying down structure in your life and disciplining yourself to the areas that you know will help you grow and you know will evolve your character, etc. Even if you don't want to do them, man.
Yeah.
It's just those things help. And if you're somebody listening that doesn't know where to start, you feel like you're wayward, you feel like, you're almost becoming kind of apathetic and nihilistic in the process because you haven't had anything happen in your favor for so long. Well, it could be a couple things. One, it could be the way you're interfacing with the world. Maybe your image is off. Maybe you're overweight. Maybe you eat like shit and that's why you're overweight. Maybe you don't have maybe you don't have a level of confidence that you should have. All these things will definitely dismiss you in the terms of interacting with people on the most profitable levels. That could leave opportunities on the table. So one, get your image correct. Clean up your image. What I mean by that is maybe, I don't know, clean up your eating if you're not already doing so. Shed some pounds, gain some muscle, get your ass in the gym. Make something of yourself in that regard. Anybody and everybody can do that. You can start now. It only takes an hour or so a day to do that. If you don't know where to start with programming, fine, go on YouTube. There's many free programs on YouTube to get started with weight training. It's going to be cruxed on your ability to apply discipline every day and do that thing every single day or when you're supposed to train. Maybe it's 5 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, whatever. Do it though. There's that. Secondly, you may just need to give yourself more time because you may be 20 something listening to this and that's you. You're overweight, haven't gotten to the gym, haven't cleaned up your image, don't dress well, don't know how to communicate with people, etc. A lot of that is because you don't feel confident.
Right.
Okay. Understand that the image is a definite precursor to you being able to navigate yourself well through life. Because image, albeit not everything, it's a major contributor to the way that people interface with you and opportunity that comes to you.
Yeah.
So it's major. So image, not only that, waiting. You just may need to wait longer because right now you're so young. And you're not even built up with the credibility to where even if you were to be catapulted to the level you want to be at, if you got there, you'd be laughed at and you would end up losing the position that you once wanted and was catapulted to because you don't have the prerequisites. What do I mean by prerequisites? You don't have the resiliency, man. You can't talk yet. You can't interface with people well yet. You can't do these things that are definite contributors to you becoming a better, a better version and more of utility to others. And that's what the name of the game is. You need to be of service and of utility to others because that's how you really scale things. What I mean by scale, you attract more opportunities, you become better, you multiply yourself. That's a real thing, but that takes time. And not only time, it takes you actively putting your best foot forward with your image, how you interface with people, and thirdly, do something that's challenging because if you don't feel you're competent now and you're not confident as a result, do something that you derive competency in, whether that's lifting weights like we just talked about, or doing something that you think is hard. Maybe it's like your fear of water, sharks, surfing. Get out in the water, surf, man. Get over the fear of the sharks if you have fear of sharks. That will develop competency. That in turn bleeds off into confidence. Now you'll be even more of a confident being. You'll be able to interact with people on levels that you didn't have in terms of the ability to otherwise. So sorry, I just had to go off on that tangent real quick.
I think that's true. And I'd like to add one more thing. It's just being who you say you are. I think that's the greatest level of confidence is, are you the person that you say you are? If you are, you've got a heck of a lot of confidence. If you're not, you need to work on that. And what I mean by that is just like saying, hey, if I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and I do wake up at 6 a.m., awesome, I've got confidence. If I don't wake up at 6 a.m., I'm lying to myself, and therefore I'm just not a confident person. So.
Or you're weak. I mean, I'm one to not always want to wake up on time. Like, I think that
Justin.
plagues all of us, you know? Like, I am human, man. I take naps occasionally.
I like naps too.
When the time's allotted, but I don't always want to wake up, man, exactly the time that I set the alarm for.
It's an example, but it's just being true to holding yourself accountable.
That's what it is.
It's
man.
really
Yeah.
holding yourself accountable. Yeah, holding yourself accountable. That's going to build a lot of confidence. Just being who you say you are. I mean, if you align with who you think you are, your actions align with it, and other people say who you say you are.
That's very true, man. Like, dressing the part every day, for one.
Yeah.
And I say dress, I don't mean just physically, I mean mentally too. Like, securing yourself with a thought process that is you're made for more.
Yeah.
And you can do more, and provided the opportunity comes, you'll smash the opportunity when it does come.
Absolutely.
But those things are very, very important, and I would say essential to have in your walk through life, because if you have that lowless state always coursing through you, like, well, I'm not really good at this, and it's like, yeah, man, that will definitely just bring you down, and you won't have the same opportunity that someone would, if they thought in a different respect would.
You're not going to attract those things, and I hate to say that word, but you're really not. It's like, I guess you can call it frequencies or vibrations, whatever you want to call it. Your thoughts, your brain works in this way. If you really want something, your brain is going to find a way to get it. If you really think that you're deserving of a relationship, you're deserving of a job, you're deserving of whatever it may be, your brain will find a way to get it. But if you always cut yourself short, if you say, I don't deserve to be loved, I don't deserve to have nice things, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve that, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And that's hard, because we can all get in that mental feedback loop, but it's just about being aware and just recognizing it at that moment and stopping it. Because, I'm sure I don't know if you've been a victim to that yourself. I know I have early in my age.
In terms of what?
In terms of just being in that cyclical pattern of, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve that, and attracting certain things that I know are not good for me. And sort of kind of going off to what you said with your presentation, even though images and everything, it plays a huge role. I've had opportunities given to me because of just how I presented myself, right? Had I not been that person, had I been a little bit slobbier or crude with my words or whatever it may be, I wouldn't have gotten to where I'm at. I'm here now because of, I guess, all the decisions I made, but I'm here now. I can map out how I got to this point here in Justin's garage, in Justin's bedroom in California, in Grover Beach, California, by just an interaction with someone who said, you know what, I'm going to give you a chance. And I took that chance. And if you don't have confidence, first of all, people aren't going to give you chances. And then second of all, you're not going to be successful at them, or to the level that you need to get to be competent or adequate enough at it to take you to that next level. Because I really believe that we really need, call it getting thrown a bone, throw me a bone here or there. We need one of those every now and then, but and the only way I think you can get that is definitely by, working out. That's going to change your, not only your physical appearance, but your mental state. That's huge. I mean, that's pretty much how I got here. Just went to the gym, and it wasn't on the first time. It wasn't on the second time. It wasn't on the third time. I tried working out a few times, and it wasn't until I hit a low point in my life that I just said, you know what, this is it. This is who I want to be. And this is sort of where God took me in that direction. So
yeah, and working out's like medicine.
It is, man.
It has to be in your daily, and I don't mean daily, like when you train, like if you're a bodybuilder per se, and you don't just exercise and you train the body and you do an array of different programming, but you train the body in a way that is, you're trying to build a physique, you need days off. So it's not something that you do every single day, because rest is very important. But at the same time, it needs to be a part of your ritual, your weekly ritual. And obviously doing that for years and years on end, you just need to make it a part of your ritual, like you do, I don't know, drinking water, eating food. It just has to become a part of you. You can't just do this thing for like 90 days.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of the mentality comes from. It's like, oh, I worked out and I didn't get the results I wanted, or I didn't get the body I wanted. And you've had clients like that. I've had clients like that. And it's just like, to them, and it might be a new endeavor, right? It might, whatever new endeavor you're having, and I'm just trying to relate it to many different things. You can't expect to be good at it or get the results right then and there. You got to stick it out. And it does have to be a part of your life. Like, I've probably had 5 continuous rest days, and I've taking a rest day is discipline in and of itself, man. For those people who work out, you'll know what I mean. And you're right, you have to rest in order to progress. You can't train every day and then progress. Your body's gonna get depleted and it's not gonna work out. But I've never taken more than 5 days away from the gym. It's just something that I do. It's just become a part of my routine, my ritual. Just who you are, and that's kind of what you got to make it be in order to be good at it.
Well, and the thing is, and evolve, man. Like, people leave so much on the table when it comes to working out. They dismiss the mental faculties that grow as a result of working out. And by those, I mean, every time you leave the gym, even if your workout was grueling and draining and you feel like you have zero energy, you are more competent now in that day than you were if you didn't go to the gym. Yeah. And those little micro competency, we'll call them competency wins.
Yeah.
They are huge game changers and contributors to how you interface with the world on a routine basis. So you can't buy that. You can't learn it. You just have to do it. And that means discipline when you don't want to do it, because most of the time the regular populace, the general populace is not going to want to work out. You and I, I can speak for myself. I'm sure you can too, or you can speak to this as well. We look forward to working out like every day. So even if we don't have the energy, we still have a little bit of good anxiety going into the workout, like apprehension, but good.
Oh yeah.
And not everybody's going to be that way, and they don't have to be that way, but they have to do it anyway. And maybe you're doing a programming, or you're immersing yourself in some type of fitness that you don't really like. My advice is find something you like to do. It doesn't have to be lifting weights, but it does have to be moving your body, and there has to be resistance against your body as a result of the thing you're doing. That could be rock climbing. That could be that could be surfing. That could be weight training. That could be CrossFit. That could be strongman. That could be whatever. Like, just do something that you find joy in doing and that causes you to want to do it at least 80% of the time.
Yeah.
I
agree. I think there's no excuse for you to be sitting on your butt. Find whether it's, like you said, weightlifting, hiking, surfing, jiu-jitsu, boxing, whatever it is, get out there and move, man. That's going to change. Movement is key, not only for your physical well health, but your mental, right? The moment, if you don't know what to do the next step. Just take one step. And if that's the only step you took that day, great. That's one step that you didn't take the day before, and it's going to get you closer to where you need to be, or where you want to be ultimately.
Yeah, I agree, man.
So,
I mean, what advice would you, we kind of covered a lot of advice, that people I'm sure would take from this, or hopefully they do at least. What would you tell? Because I gave my take on the 20-year-old that doesn't know where to start and what to do with their life. And maybe they're on Instagram every single day for hours, and they're looking at all these people that have quote unquote made it and or are doing the damn thing. And what would you say to them when they're getting discouraged by that and they're getting frustrated as a result because they want more, but they just don't know where to start?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, get yourself out of that space, right? It starts in the mental. If that's causing you to feel that way, get out of there, right? Just flee from it.
Meaning like shut Instagram off?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think a lot of people shouldn't be on Instagram. If they're not in a good mental state, they shouldn't be on there. And that just causes them to get deeper and deeper into that hole. So that's, if you're that person, don't, just get off of that. Secondly, if you're young, like you said, I was 20 years, man, I don't remember what I was doing when I was 20 years old, but I know it wasn't anything good. But what I did know was that, actually, I kind of do remember, I was in the music scene, I was doing interviews. So, it's kind of like my first podcast, but I did interviews back in the day with bands. I would just knock doors of tour buses and just interview. So find something, whether it's like, I think photography, if you're like a really good skateboarder, you play the guitar really well, like get immersed in that, right? What hobby what do people say, hey, you're pretty good at this? Do that more, right? Because I think, like you said, it just goes back to the confidence thing. If you're a really good guitarist, if you're a really good piano player, if you're a really good singer, dancer, do that more. You're going to find a lot of fulfillment and joy out of that. And that opens doors, right? Because if you're confident in that sense, let's say you're out there dancing or something because you're really good at it. I don't know. You find some artist and you're also like painting. You also like painting, and that person says, hey, can you paint me a portrait from my house? And then you do it, and then he likes it and tells his other friend, and now you've become the painter for all these people, and that's how you became, successful, right? You just never know what you're gonna get when you're doing the things that you love to do. I've had so many opportunities because of just having fun, because of the things that I'm doing that bring me pleasure, whether it be the gym, whether it be surfing, whether it be, even just talking to people at doors, knocking doors, selling solar, waiting tables. I've had so many opportunities, and just being joyful in it and being happy. People want to be around people like that. I think that's what people gravitate towards. And if you know that you're a Debbie Downer, or you're someone who's not like that, start by just looking in the mirror, and then just, I don't know, I hate to say the affirmation things, but really, say something nice to yourself. And then from there, find what you like to do it. If it brings you joy, do it more, and it'll just become a domino effect. It'll snowball. So, yeah, man, that's all I got to say for that.
Love it, man. Well, man, we need to do this again.
Yeah, dude.
This was fun, man.
Absolutely.
And we'll do it again, maybe a couple months from now. What do you say?
I'm down.
Cool, man. So tell everybody where they can find you, man.
Yeah, I've got Instagram. Handle is Maximize Strength. I was a big powerlifter back in the day, so I kind of like to keep that handle. But it's also, strength is one thing that I pray for every day, just to get up every morning and do it. I'm usually up by 4 a.m, and I don't go to bed till maybe 9 or 10. So, it's kind of you need some strength in there. But Maximize Strength is my Instagram handle. I'm also on Facebook for all you old farts. But yeah, that's
what's the Facebook name?
Oh geez, if you just put my full name, Maximiliano Valdes, you'll see me. It should be the same picture as my Instagram. So,
and that is Valdes with an S.
Valdes with
not
an
with
S.
a Z.
So Maximiliano, Maximiliano, and then Valdes, Valdes.
There you have it. Well, thanks, brother.
Yeah, man.
I'll see you in the gym, man. Right?
Yeah, right on, dude.
Done.